Victorian house was a symphony of whispered secrets and creaking floorboards, a shared inheritance that felt more like a gilded cage to Rose. To everyone else, it was a charming landmark. To her, it was a constant, aching reminder of the family that wasn't hers, and the girl who was almost her sister. Ella. The word itself was a flavor on her tongue, a burst of sugar and something sharper, like a raspberry coulis. Ella wasn't her sister by blood, a technicality that had become the central, agonizing paradox of Rose's life. Their fathers, best friends since college, had bought this sprawling, slightly dilapidated house together, a grand plan for a combined family that fate had cut short. First, Ella's mother had passed. Then Rose's father had left, fading from their lives like a bad photograph. The two remaining men, bonded by grief and friendship, had raised Rose and Ella as siblings in this maze of a home. But Rose had never felt sisterly, not for a single guilt-ridden second. She was hiding in the library, a room smelling of old paper and lemon polish, pretending to read a heavy Keats anthology. In reality, she was tracing the same line over and over again. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness. All she could think of was Ella. Ella, who had just returned from her final year of university. Ella, who had left a bright, ambitious girl and had returned a woman. A devastatingly beautiful woman. From the moment she'd walked through the door yesterday, dragging her suitcase, the very air in the house had changed. It crackled. It hummed. Rose's heart, a timid, well-behaved organ, had begun to beat a frantic, rebellious rhythm against her ribs. And Ella, she was different. Her gaze, once familiar and teasing, now held a new, unnerving intensity. It lingered on Rose a second too long, swept over her with an appraisal that felt anything but sisterly. She'd always been beautiful, with her sun-kissed blonde hair and eyes the color of summer sky. But now there was a confidence to her, a graceful ownership of her own body that was utterly captivating. Her figure, showcased in a simple silk camisole and tailored trousers, was a study in elegant curves, a subtle waist flaring to generous hips, and a presence that seemed to command the very light in the room. Rose squeezed her eyes shut. Stop it. She's your sister. In every way that matters. There you are. The voice was like honey and whiskey, smooth and intoxicating. Rose jumped, the book thumping shut on her lap. Ella stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame with an effortless grace that made Rose feel like a clumsy child. She was holding 2 tall glasses filled with a pale, sparkling liquid adorned with mint leaves and slices of lime. Hiding from the reunion chaos? Ella asked, a knowing smile playing on her lips. Their fathers were in the garden, firing up the barbecue, their laughter echoing through the open French doors. Just reading, Rose mumbled, her voice embarrassingly faint. Ella pushed off the doorframe and glided into the room. She placed one glass on the side table next to Rose. I made mojitos, Dad's terrible rum from the Bahamas. I thought we could use something stronger than lemonade. Thanks, Rose said, her fingers trembling slightly as she took the cool glass. Their hands didn't touch, but the proximity sent a jolt through her system. Ella didn't leave. Instead, she sat on the leather ottoman opposite Rose, tucking her long legs beneath her. She took a slow sip of her drink, her eyes never leaving Rose's face. The silence stretched, thick and heavy with unspoken words. You've changed, Rosie, Ella said softly. Rose's heart stammered. So have you. I have, Ella agreed, her gaze dropping for a moment to her own glass before returning, bold and blue. I've spent a lot of time thinking about life, about what I want. She paused. About who I want. The air left Rose's lungs. This was new. This was dangerous. This was everything she had ever secretly, shamefully longed for, and now utterly terrifying. University must have been enlightening, Rose managed, grasping for a safe, sisterly topic. Ella's smile widened, a flash of white teeth. It was, but it wasn't university that was the revelation. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. It was coming home. It was seeing you. Rose felt the world tilt. The Keats anthology slid from her lap onto the Persian rug with a soft thud. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only drown in the cerulean depth of Ella's gaze. Before she could formulate a response, a denial, a question, a plea, Ella stood up. She didn't look away. Her expression was a mixture of determination and something else, something raw and vulnerable. I'm going to go put my bags in the east bedroom. This rum is stronger than I thought, she said, her voice slightly husky. But the words felt like a code. Her eyes flickered towards the hallway, then back to Rose, holding her captive for one more heartbeat. Then she turned and walked away, leaving a trail of her jasmine perfume and a universe of unspoken implications. Rose sat frozen, the cold glass sweating in her hand. She's teasing you. She's always teased you. This is just Ella being Ella. But it wasn't. The look in her eyes had been unequivocal. It had been intention. It had been desire. The next few hours were a special kind of torture. The barbecue was a blur of grilled meat, fatherly jokes, and the oppressive summer heat. Rose moved through it like an automaton, nodding and smiling at the right moments, all the while hyper-aware of Ella's every movement. The way she laughed, throwing her head back, the elegant column of her throat exposed, the way her hand brushed against Rose's arm as she passed her the potato salad, a touch that felt like a brand. The way her eyes kept finding Rose's across the garden table, holding her gaze with a smoldering intensity that made the food turn to ash in Rose's mouth. Their fathers, blessedly oblivious, chatted about golf and politics. Rose felt like she was screaming on the inside, a silent, desperate scream that no one could hear. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, a comfortable tipsiness had settled over the two men. Ella's father, Mark, clapped a hand on Rose's father's shoulder. "Right, Tom. Let's leave the girls to clean up. There's a game on." Tom grinned. "You just want to avoid washing dishes. Guilty as charged." They ambled off towards the living room, their camaraderie a stark contrast to the tense, electric silence that fell between the two women in the garden. The fairy lights strung across the pergola flickered on, casting a soft, magical glow. Crickets began their evening chorus. Rose started gathering plates, her movements jerky, desperate for a task to focus on. Ella was slower, more deliberate. She stacked a few glasses, then stopped, watching Rose. "You've been quiet all evening," she observed. "Just tired," Rose lied, not meeting her eyes. Liar. The word was soft, but it hit Rose like a physical blow. She finally looked up. Ella was standing by the wrought iron table, the fading twilight silhouetting her incredible form. She was a vision, and Rose's resolve began to crumble. "Ella, what are you doing?" Rose whispered, her voice pleading. "What I should have done years ago," Ella replied, her own voice low and steady. She took a step closer. "I'm not playing games, Rose. I meant what I said earlier." "You can't mean it. It's wrong." "Why?" Ella challenged, taking another step. The space between them crackled. "Because our fathers are friends? Because we shared a bathroom for 10 years? Tell me, Rose, right now, looking me in the eye, and tell me you've never once thought about me this way." Rose's mouth went dry. The denial stuck in her throat, a lie too monumental to voice. Her silence was all the confirmation Ella needed. A slow, triumphant smile spread across Ella's face. It wasn't cruel. It was relieved. It was radiant. "I have thought about you every single day for the past 2 years," Ella confessed, her voice dropping to a husky whisper that was almost swallowed by the crickets. "Every stupid lecture, every party I didn't want to be at, every night I lay in a dorm room bed. It was you. It was always you, Rosie. Your laugh, your smart mouth, the way you bite your lip when you're concentrating." She was close now. So close Rose could see the flecks of silver in her blue eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from her body. "I thought I was crazy," Rose breathed, the confession torn from her. "I thought it was just me." "It's never been just you," Ella said, her gaze dropping to Rose's lips. And then it happened. The world narrowed to the space between their mouths. Ella closed the final distance. The kiss was not tentative. It was not a question. It was an answer. It was a claiming. Ella's lips were soft and tasted of mint, lime, and the faint, sweet trace of rum. It was a taste that was uniquely, intoxicatingly Ella. A small broken sound escaped Rose's throat as every nerve ending in her body ignited. Her hands, still clutching a dirty plate, went limp, and it clattered onto the flagstones, but neither of them noticed. Ella's hands came up to cradle Rose's face, her thumbs stroking her cheeks with a tenderness that made Rose want to weep. The kiss deepened, slow and exploratory, a languid, breathtaking discovery. It was everything Rose had ever dreamed of and nothing she could have ever imagined. It was heat and sweetness and a rightness that obliterated every argument, every shred of guilt. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless. Rose's head was spinning, her lips tingling. Ella rested her forehead against Rose's, their breaths mingling in the warm evening air. "See?" Ella whispered, her voice raw with emotion. "Not wrong. This has never felt more right." Rose could only nod, her mind reeling, her world fundamentally reshaped. It was then that they heard the creak of the living room door. They sprang apart, a guilty, synchronized movement. Rose's father poked his head out. "Everything okay?" Sounded like something broke. "Just a plate, Dad," Rose said, her voice miraculously steady. "Butterfingers, we've got it." He nodded, too distracted by the game to notice the charged atmosphere or the flush on both their cheeks. Okay, don't cut yourselves. The door closed again. The moment was broken, but the spell was not. The air was still thick with what had just transpired. Ella looked at Rose, her eyes dark with promise and a new, thrilling urgency. The drinks trolley in the den needs refilling, she said, her voice casual, but her eyes were anything but. I think the good gin is in the downstairs drinks cabinet, in the storage room. Rose knew exactly which room she meant. A small, windowless room off the main hallway, lined with shelves of wine, spirits, and preserves. It was always cool and dark, a world away from the rest of the house. Ella held her gaze for a long moment, then turned and walked towards the French doors, not looking back. It was an invitation. A challenge. Rose stood rooted to the spot, her heart hammering against her sternum. Every rational thought told her to stay put, to clean up the broken plate, to go upstairs and lock her door and pretend this never happened. But her feet were already moving. They carried her across the terrace, through the French doors, and into the dimly lit hallway. She felt like she was in a dream, floating towards a point of no return. The door to the storage room was slightly ajar. A sliver of light spilled out onto the hardwood floor. Rose pushed it open. Ella was there waiting. She had turned on the single bare bulb that hung from the ceiling, casting the small room in a warm golden light. The air was cool and smelled of dust, old wood, and the faint, sweet aroma of preserved peaches. She turned as Rose entered, and without a word, she reached behind her and pushed the door shut. The click of the latch echoed in the small space, final and absolute. She caught me into the drink room, Rose thought. The phrasing from her own fantasy coming to life in the most breathtaking way. They were alone, sealed away from the world, from their fathers, from every rule and expectation that had ever governed their lives. For a moment, they just looked at each other, the tension so palpable Rose could almost taste it. The shelves of bottles and jars created intimate, shadowy alcoves around them. You came, Ella said, her voice a low vibration in the quiet room. You knew I would, Rose replied, her own voice gaining a strength she didn't know she possessed. A slow, sexy smile spread across Ella's face. I hoped. She took a step forward and Rose matched her, until they were mere inches apart in the center of the small room. The air between them seemed to shimmer. I need you to be sure, Rose, Ella said, her expression turning serious. Once we cross this line, there's no going back to being sisters. We become something else entirely. Rose looked at this incredible woman. Her confidence, her vulnerability, the love shining in her eyes that was so much more profound than mere familial affection. She thought of the years of silent longing, the ache of wanting something she believed was forbidden. She thought of the devastating rightness of their kiss. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Rose said, and it was the truth. I love you, Ella. Not like a sister. I never have. The words once spoken seemed to expand and fill the room, pushing out the last remnants of doubt. A tear escaped Ella's eye and traced a path down her cheek, but she was smiling, a beautiful, radiant smile of pure joy. I love you, Rose. So much it terrifies me. This time it was Rose who initiated the kiss. She surged forward, capturing Ella's lips with her own, pouring a lifetime of suppressed love and desire into the connection. Ella responded instantly, her arms wrapping around Rose's waist, pulling her flesh against her body. The kiss was different now. Hotter, more desperate, fueled by confession and liberation. Ella's hands slid down from Rose's waist to her hips, pulling her even closer. Rose could feel the soft, generous curves of Ella's body against her own, a sensation so electrifying it made her knees weak. She tangled her fingers in Ella's soft blonde hair, holding her as if she might vanish. Ella broke the kiss, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She leaned her forehead against Rose's, her eyes closed. God, Rose, I've wanted this for so long. Me too, Rose whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She let her hands drift down, tracing the line of Ella's spine, feeling the powerful muscles of her back through the thin silk of her camisole. Ella shuddered at the touch, a small, breathy moan escaping her lips. That sound, so utterly unsisterly, sent a bolt of pure desire straight through Rose. Emboldened, she leaned in and pressed her lips to the pulse point on Ella's neck, tasting the salt on her skin, feeling the frantic beat of her heart against her mouth. Ella's head fell back, granting her better access, her hands gripping Rose's shoulders for support. You have no idea what you do to me, Ella breathed, her voice husky and strained. I think I'm starting to, Rose murmured against her skin, her hands moving to Ella's hips, pulling her even closer until there was no space left between them. The room was filled with the sound of their ragged breathing and the soft rustle of clothing. The world outside, the cricket chorus, the distant murmur of the television, the entire universe, ceased to exist. There was only this room, this moment, them. Ella's hands came up to frame Rose's face again, her touch reverent. She looked into Rose's eyes, her gaze blazing with a love so fierce it stole Rose's breath away. My beautiful, brave Rose, she whispered, before capturing her lips in another searing kiss. A kiss that promised a future Rose had never dared to dream of. A future that started here, in this dusty storage room, surrounded by the sweet taste of possibility and the woman she loved.